Welcome to the Virginia Distribution Center, also known as the VDC. We've actually been in existence since 1960. Well, not me personally, but the VDC. And we've had several locations since we opened. The most recent location we moved into in 2001, which has been about 19 years. We have a 122,000 square foot distribution center just east of Richmond International Airport. Now, the VDC is an internal service fund, and what that means is that we buy product, we add a markup to it, and we use that markup to pay for all the expenses that we have. And that includes our salaries, the light bill, and we even had a loan on the building that we paid off a few years ago. So the mission of the Virginia Distribution Center is to provide our customers with customer-driven quality products and services at the lowest prices. We have over 1,300 items with a wide selection from frozen food to dry goods to housekeeping supplies to paint and even the state flag and the U.S. flags. We have a partnership with the Virginia Industries for the Blind, and we have about 87 of their items. And for those of you that aren't familiar with the Virginia Industries for the Blind, they employ visually impaired citizens to give them training to get jobs out in the private sector as well as work for the VIB. So we have items like mop heads, spices, Purell hand sanitizer. We get those from the VIB. We also have a wide range of other items. We have work gloves. We actually have riot gloves with the plates on the back, plastic plates, so that they can use those to protect themselves. We have trash can liners and interoffice envelopes, and we have batteries. Now, we actually have the standard alkaline batteries, AAA through D, and a few years ago, I looked at Walmart.com to compare our prices with the prices you can get for the largest quantities at Walmart, and our batteries were 45 to 65% less expensive. Now, I've had people before tell me, I don't have room to store 96 AA batteries. Well, this is 96 AA batteries. They're not actually packaged like you'd see in a store. So they're actually much more compact, so it's easier to store. So the main goal and how we're rated is by how much money we save our customers. And we save money in 4 ways. The first is bulk purchasing. The second way is by reducing our customers' procurement and receiving costs through efficient shipping to keep the price of getting the product out as low as possible. And we also have a quality assurance program to make sure that the products are what we need them to be. We also have other ways we save. I'm actually a fairly frugal person. At home, I don't mind spending if it's something that we want. But here, we try to make sure we get a really good return on investment because we want to keep our costs down so that we can pass our savings on to our customers. So some of the ways we've saved money is, big one is through the Office of Surplus Property Management, or OSPM. Floyd Coburn and his team are really good at finding good quality furniture and other items to help you keep your costs down. So as you go around in most places here, with the exception of the cubes around the windows, most of the furniture in this building is actually surplus property that we've gotten from surplus, or we'll also take it from anybody else that's willing to get rid of it and knows we might be able to give it a home. Another way we've saved money is the federal government years ago had a grant program for photovoltaic panels, in other words, solar panels. So we have 1,035 solar panels on the roof of this building that help supply some of the energy that we use, keeping our energy costs down. We've also slowly been changing out our lights for LED lights because it's more cost efficient and more green centered. So many of you have had the chance to come out here and take a tour in person. And we'd love to have everybody else, or even if you want to come back, we'd love to have you again. So when you can, and things are situated so that we can do that, give me a call. So in the meantime, we'd like to give you a virtual tour. And we're going to do our best to make it as close to the actual tour as we can. Some things may not translate as well, but again, you're welcome to come out in person a little later. So most people have placed an order online. And you understand, you place the order arrives. But there's a lot more that goes on in between to get that product to you. So we want to show you what goes into getting the product to the customer. So if you're ready, let's begin the tour. So the first way we save is through bulk purchasing. Now, before I start describing that, I'd like to tell you what our top 5 items are. Every year it changes a little bit, but it's kind of the same. You might guess, but the top item is 1-ply toilet paper. And before you go, what? Don't worry, the second item is 2-ply toilet paper. Toilet paper is one of our biggest sellers. And we have several different item numbers for that with different styles, well, not really styles, different sizes and different plies. So the third top selling item is foaming hand and body soap for a security dispensing system. And if you want to know more about that, give us a call, we'll tell you about it. The fourth top selling item is hot roll mix in a 50-pound bag. Now, hot roll mix is flour with yeast and some other ingredients already put into it so that you don't have to mix any of it up. And some of our customers can't have just yeast within their facilities because you can make alcohol with it. So we have hot roll mix for that purpose. Now, the fifth top selling item is a 3-compartment hinge tray, sort of like a doggy box. We sell quite a few of those. Now, it didn't make the top 5, but one of my favorites is number 6, and that's peanut butter. We sell it in a 30-pound box. It's basically like peanut butter in a bag in a cardboard box. We used to keep it in the dry area, and that was my favorite place to be because all it smelled like was peanut butter. But in the summertime, the boxes can sweat, and so we moved it into the cool room so that when our customers get the boxes of peanut butter, it looks a little better. It didn't hurt the quality of the peanut butter, but it's just a visual thing. So, you know, everybody knows that downtown in our division, there's a group called Strategic Sourcing and Contracting. They do statewide contracts that everybody can purchase directly from, where you purchase from the vendor and the vendor delivers it to you. Well, we do the same thing with a little twist. What we do is we set up statewide contracts, but they're contracts that only we can purchase from. Then, like I mentioned before, we buy the product, we add a markup to it, and then we sell it to our customers. So, how do we decide which items we carry and which items Strategic Sourcing and Contracting carries? That's pretty easy. If we can get enough of a discount from the vendor by letting them bring full truck deliveries in instead of shipping a case here and case there, to which we can actually add our markup and offer it at the same price or a lower price, we'll carry it. Usually it's at a lower price, but we do have a few items that we call convenience items, and our customers like us to carry it in order to save them from having an extra delivery. So we actually have 2 procurement managers on site who do most all of the buying for our resale items. So let me introduce you to them real quick. One is Kevin. Say hi, Kevin.
Hello, everybody. Good day.
Now, they buy most everything that we sell. And they're very conscientious at it to try to get the best prices possible. So the other procurement manager we have is Jackie, who should be over my shoulder right now.
Hi, guys.
There she is. So Kevin and Jackie work together to get it all done and get everything purchased so that we can get it in here. And that's actually the second way we save money for our customers. That's through reducing our customers' procurement, and receiving costs. What I meant by that is we have about 88 long-term contracts, and we do about 418 quick quotes every year. So that means we have about 123 POs a month. If the VDC didn't exist, then most of our customers would have to hire people to do those purchases and handle all those contracts. So what are the benefits that provided by the procurement team here at the VDC? Well, there's 3 of them. The first is a single point of contact to handle vendor issues. If something goes wrong with the product, instead of multiple people having to deal with the vendor, they take care of it for us. The second is by consolidating buying power, everyone benefits from the lower prices. Again, bulk purchasing power. We take not just one agency, but we take all the agencies and put them together so that we can get the bulk buying power for everybody. And the third way we save through the procurement team is having a wide range of products delivered on a single delivery. So instead of having 123 different deliveries every month, you can get one delivery from us and have a mix of all those products together. So, and I know I've told people before, I have a accounting and an auditing background. Please don't hate me for the auditing. I was one of the good auditors. Don't laugh, it's true, there are some. But we always looked at businesses as cycles because it always rotates. You start off at a point, you go through, and you always end up back at that point and you do it again. So let me describe to you the procurement cycle as we handle it. So the VDC uses 3 main computer systems in addition to EVA. We have an enterprise resource planning system, or an ERP. We have a warehouse management system, a WMS. And we have an order management system, or an OMS. That's also our punch-out catalog and our product catalog. So for the procurement cycle, we start with the ERP. In this system, we have settings for minimums, maximums, safety stock, and we use all this to manage when do we purchase more of the product to make sure that we have it in stock and keep our fill rate up, which generally our fill rate is above industry standards. And we like to keep it that way. So Kevin and Jackie will constantly review the products that we have and the mix and when we have them and how we are doing with the fill rate for each to adjust these levels. Now the system actually monitors the inventory level on a consistent ongoing basis. And when it looks and says, you know, we need a little bit more of this item, it creates a suggested purchase order or an SPO. So when the procurement manager gets the SPO, they review it for several things just to see how they're going to handle it. We don't always use a suggested purchase order when it comes out. Some things are seasonal, like tom turkeys. In the fall, we definitely want to buy tom turkeys because they're mainly used during the holidays. So we don't really buy them in April. So if the system tells us we need more in April, we're not going to purchase any. Same goes for ice melt. We'll actually buy ice melt much later. We do start around September each year buying ice melt, and we'll buy that through maybe February, March, depending on the weather and how the outlook looks. But it also allows us to get a mix of items because a lot of our contracts have multiple items. We may not need a full truckload of item A. Instead, we can mix item A, item B, item C, and item D, and we can get a full truck to keep that lower pricing and still get what we need. Now, once they've looked at it all, and we do place orders that are not through suggested purchase orders, but once the order's ready, the purchase order then interfaces with EVA, and it goes through the normal process for the approvals and the flow and everything else. Once that's all done, then the ERP sends that purchase order to our warehouse management system. So let's go out to the operations area and continue this discussion there. now we're in the operations area. And one of the things that most people don't realize until they get here is just how big this area really is. So where we left off before we came out here was the purchase order was being sent from the ERP to the warehouse management system. The next step is for the vendor to call us to make a delivery appointment. When they do that, one of the operations leaders takes the PO and puts it on a receiver. This is a task in the WMS that allows us to take care of all the steps we need to take care of. So when the truck actually arrives, they give one of the material handlers the receiving paperwork. And this has all the information about the purchase order on it so that they know what they're supposed to be getting. The material handler then unloads the truck and puts the product in a staging zone, just like you see right here. Now we have several staging zones depending on what kind of product you have. If we have a cold item, then we put it in the cold room, obviously. If we have food, it comes here. And if it's housekeeping products, we'll put it in a zone towards the northern side of the building. Once they've unloaded the truck, the material handler then checks all the product for damage. We want to make sure that there's nothing that might be hidden or something that we end up accepting when we shouldn't have. Then they check to make sure that what's on the pallets is what we're supposed to get, and they count the quantity to make sure we're getting the amount we're supposed to get. They document anything they need to on the paperwork and sign it for the drivers so that they can leave. Then what they do is they take a pallet ID. Now a pallet ID is basically a sticker with a barcode and a unique identification number on it. Each one of these pallets has a unique pallet ID so that we can tell each one apart. Once they put the pallet ID on the pallet, they take a handheld radio frequency device like this one, and they scan the receiving paperwork to load the purchase order into the device. Then they go to one of the pallets and they scan the barcode. Now the system knows I'm looking at this particular pallet. At this point, they need to enter the information about that pallet. So if there's more than one item on the purchase order, they need to pick from the list and determine, okay, it's item A. Then they go through and they enter the quantity. So the system knows on that pallet, we have this item and we have X number of this item. It also, the system automatically records the receiving date. The system uses that for us to rotate the product properly to maintain FIFO, or first in, first out rotation. So once all this information is in there, then they'll go to the next pallet. Now, if for some reason we need an expiration date, some items we do, some we don't, or we need to track lot codes, in the item master we can check a flag that will require the material handler to enter that information as well. Once all the pallets have been scanned into the system, then the material handler pushes a couple buttons and the system creates put-away tasks. Now these tasks tell the material handler exactly where to put the product. And what it does is it looks at the pick location for the item and then looks for the closest empty reserve storage location to that pick location. And the reason for this is when you go to pull the product back out, you want it as close to the pick location as possible, because every inch you move a product and every time you touch it costs money. So when they're ready and they've created the put away task, the material handler goes up to one of the pallets and scans the pallet ID. And the system then will tell them which location to put it in. Also, the system electronically moves that pallet from that staging zone to the particular piece of material handling equipment that the material handler is using. When the material handler gets to the location, they scan the location code on the location itself to confirm I'm in the right place. When they do that, they physically put the product in that location, and the system electronically moves the product to that location. So now that this is done, the procurement cycle is pretty much finished and it goes back to where we started. So one thing to note is the average weight of the products that we receive over about a month's time is 2.7 million pounds of product. So that now we've done this, let's go discuss the order cycle. So let me introduce you to our customer service team. We have our bookkeeper customer service rep, Sheila. We have our load planner, Brenda. And we have our two customer service reps, Stephanie and Becca. So the team is available every normal business day from 8 a.m. to 4:45 p.m. They can be reached at 804-328-3232, extension 0, or by email at vdccustomercare@dgs.virginia.gov. So everything that we do begins and ends with our customers. This is the order cycle. So let's talk first about our product catalogs. We described these earlier as an order management system, and we have a few different versions. One is a catalog that's available without a login that lets you go out and see the information about the item and the pricing. We also have the punch-out catalog in EVA, so that you can get the same information there. Now, a few great features about our catalog is that it allows for more than one picture for each item. It has improved search capability, and it has a more modern Amazon type feel to it. It's also the best place to get a safety data sheet if you need one for a product that has one. What you can do is go to that item, and there's a little symbol. When you click on it, the safety data sheet will open up, and then you can either print it or save a copy. The catalog can be reached at http://shopvdc, all one word, .dgs.virginia.gov. So once you've placed an order and it's been approved on your side of the equation, it comes into our ERP system, and our customer service team will then review it. They're going to look for anything unusual, like say you want 12 brooms, and you put 12 in the quantity field. Well, you've just ordered 144 brooms because they come by the dozen. You've ordered 12 dozen. So if they see this, they're going to call you and ask you, are you sure you want 144 brooms? And then it gives you a chance to update and fix the order before it gets processed. So once the customer service rep has reviewed the order and everything is good, they release the order to the load planner. The load planner then takes the orders and works with the routes, and a route is like a truck, to get everything in the most efficient manner. Now about 80% of our routes are already preset. We have customers that have delivery days on certain days, and so these orders automatically go in there. But the route planner then takes other orders and adds them to make a full truck, because a full truck is the most efficient way to ship. It costs us less money to get it to you. Sometimes, however, a route may be too big to fit on a truck, in which case the load planner will split the orders up onto a couple routes and then use other orders to fill in to try to make it a full truck. So once the load plan is complete, the route planner and the operations manager get together and they review the plan to see if they need to adjust anything. And if not, then what they do is they drop the routes to the warehouse management system. So let's go back out to the operations area and continue this discussion there. So now that the order has been dropped to the WMS system, we can go forward with the process. So every afternoon, the task coordinator, and that position is kind of like the air traffic controller of the operations team, this task coordinator batches the wave. Now what this does is it creates tasks in the WMS system. So the first one it creates is replenishment tasks. What it does is it looks at the pick locations to determine what product's in there and what we're going to need for the next day for all of the orders that need to be selected. So let's give you an example. Say that there are 20 cases in the pick location and you need 140 cases for all the orders that are going to be selected the next day. Well, if there's 56 cases on a pallet, it'll create 3 replenishment tasks. So 56 times 3 is 168. Add that to the 20 you already have, that's 188 cases. You need 140, that leaves 48 cases. So what it does is when it creates these tasks, it looks for the product with the oldest received date. Again, so we can rotate FIFO, first in, first out. Then it sits there and it's just waiting. So that when you go to the pick location and the order selector, when you get to the pick location and the order selector needs more, the replenisher gets called in, they come in, and what they do is they scan the location barcode. Now, just quickly as an aside, to know how detailed all this is, every location code is a 5-digit number. The first 2 digits are the aisle. The second 2 digits are the column, and the last digit is the level. So this is actually 1753-1. So we're in aisle 17. This is column 53. This is the first level location. And it goes 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. So back to the replenisher. When they scan that location barcode, the system knows it's for this item. And it looks for the replenishment task related to that item. And it sends the replenisher to that location. So the replenisher goes to get it, and they scan the pallet ID on the pallet to bring down. And the system checks to make sure it's the right one. Electronically, it moves it from that location to their piece of equipment. Then they put it in the pick location, and they scan that location code again, and it confirms that you put it away, and it moves electronically from the equipment to that location. So that covers the replenishment task. The other tasks that are created are called pick tasks. Well, these each come as different tasks for generally about a pallet. And we can adjust at times. But the task coordinator assigns these tasks to material handlers. And one of the great features of this is we can assign the whole route to one material handler, or we can split it up between several of them if we need to get it turned over very quickly. So once the tasks are assigned to the order selectors, there's 2 real ways that they can select the order. One is voice picking. What they do is they wear a headset, and it's connected to a module that uses radio frequency to connect to the computer, and the computer tells them where to go. And they call the computer, when you talk to her, Lola, by the way. I didn't know why for the longest time until I asked the operations manager, and he told me it was from a Robin Williams movie called RV, where they called the GPS Lola. So anyway, Lola tells them where to go. So in this case, 1753-1. When they get there, she wants them to give her the check digit. That's this big number, 14. So they say 14, and she knows, okay, they're in the right location. That's the confirmation. She tells them we need, say, 6. They go, and she asks, how many did you pick? And if they have 6, they'll say 6, and they put them on the pallet. And then they say ready. And this tells Lola that they're ready for the next task. By the way, when they pick up the pallet, the system asks them, do you want to create a new pallet? And when they do, it creates a pallet ID that's unique to that pallet, again, to track everything and every bit of movement through the system. So the other way to select an order is through the handheld RF device that we saw earlier. With that one, it shows all the items on the order and you can scroll through. And what they'll do is they'll go pick, and generally we're here, these are called base items because these are 610 cans and they're heavier. They'll go through and pick that, and what the order selector will do is they'll scan this location code, and when they do that, it confirms I'm in the right place. Well, the device already shows I need 6. They pick 6 and they type in 6, and then the system shows the 6 going onto that particular pallet. Now, they continue this all the way through until they have finished that particular pallet. And with the assignments that are given, it could be that you go with what's assigned, but they could look at it, and if it looks like it needs to be cut off a little sooner because it's going to be too tall, or they've got a different mix, they can also choose to do that. And with that case, they go and they deliver. Now, to discuss what happens after they deliver the pallet, let's go up to the outbound staging lanes. So here we are at the outbound staging zones, and this is where the order selectors will bring their pallets and deliver them for the system. And when they do that, again, the system removes it from their piece of equipment electronically and puts it in the same stage zone, staging lane, stage zone. So then it asks, do you want a shipping label? And the order selector will say yes, and they actually are over by a supervisor's cube, and there's a printer right there with a drive-through lane, so they don't even have to stop. And then what they get is a green sheet like this. Now, the shipping label has some good information on it. It has every item that's on that pallet, along with the quantities. It has the barcode for that unique identifier. It also has the order number, which for anything in EVA is going to be the EP number. It has who picked it, and it has the route. And if it's more than one stop, it'll show which stop it is. So the next step in the process is our quality control team. And this also brings us to the fourth way we save money for our customers, and that's efficient shipping. Years ago, we had a fleet of trucks, and it was determined that we could outsource it and save money, and we did. And the current company that has the contract is Central Freight Lines. You may see their CFL trucks running up down the roads. They're pretty much white with green letters. And in addition to them taking the product across to our customers, they have 3 staff members who work in our facility every day, and they handle quality control. What they do is, once our order selectors deliver the pallets to the staging lane, our order selectors don't stretch wrap it. They set them down, and then the quality control team comes over and they check what's supposed to be on this pallet against what actually is. Then they stretch wrap it, then they're ready to load it. So when the trailer's ready, what they'll do is they take that barcode on the green sheet and they scan it. Then as they're putting it on the truck, there's a barcode on the door, and they scan that barcode, and that tells the system, I've just moved it from this staging lane onto the trailer. And what happens then is the system, once all the pallets are loaded, the system then closes the order in WMS. It transmits that information to the ERP. The ERP closes the order, and then it creates an invoice and a bill of lading, both of which print out over where the CFL team's office is. Then they can marry that up with the trailer so that when it goes to their terminal to go out to the other terminals and be delivered, the paperwork is together. Also, the ERP emails a copy of the invoice to the customers overnight, so that generally you should have a copy of the invoice before the product shows up. So that actually finishes up the order cycle. So let's go back to the admin office to talk about the next item. As you can see, we do test the toilet paper we carry to make sure that the square footage is what it should be. About a decade ago, all the rolls we tested came up about 10% short. So we contacted the vendor, who then contacted the manufacturer, and they thanked us and told us the machines had gotten out of calibration. They also sent us a check for $17,000 that we shared with our customers. So most people don't even realize that we do have an on-site quality assurance laboratory. So let me show you a few pieces of the equipment that we have that we use to test the products with. So first we have a Rockwell hardness tester. We sell stainless steel flatware, and this makes sure it's of sufficient strength. The magnifying glass is actually used to test thread count in things like sheets. I've come in and seen them, they cut a square out and they're counting the thread count to make sure it's sufficient. We have a microscope to look at very small particles, and then the chrome box is a drying oven. It actually measures the percentage of solids in a mixture such as Forwax or mustard. I used to tell people it measures the consistency, but our QA laboratory manager has told me it doesn't. We have a consistometer. This measures the percentage of solids in the liquid. I don't understand the difference, and one day I'm going to pin him down and get him to explain it to me, but there is a difference. So, Mina's ready now to show us the Instron Universal Tester in action. Let's go over and look. The Instron Universal Tester is used to test the tensile strength of various items. One example is trash can liners. It can actually be used to test the elongation or the stretch in the trash can liners. It can be used to test the break point in things like paper towels and napkins, just to see how strong these items are. So now let's go into the test kitchen and continue this conversation. So this is our test kitchen. We don't provide food for our employees on a regular basis, but the only way to really test food is to cook it and eat it. So often we will have 4 or 5 samples of the same thing, like say pudding, and they'll be labeled A, B, C, D, and E. We have no idea where they come from, but we'll have a form, and on the form we grade the product by color, odor, texture, taste, anything you can think of. And then the lab analyst puts all that data together to determine which is the best product. Now, there's 4 times that we actually test a product during the life cycle. And so the first time is when we put out an invitation for bids. If the incumbent is not the lowest bid, we require the lowest bidder to provide us with a sample. We're testing to make sure that what they're sending us either meets or exceeds our specifications. Then, if that bid is the winner, then the first truck that comes in, we'll go take a sample and we'll test it again to make sure that what they're giving us is what they said they were going to give us. Now the third time is throughout the year. Just randomly we test things, and we generally mix it up. That way no vendor or employee knows what's going to be tested when. And then the 4th time in the cycle we test is if a customer makes a complaint about a product. We try to get the same lot of the product and test that to see if we can replicate their problems. And that way we can help solve it or go back to the vendor. So about 6 months ago, we had a brand new maple syrup come in. And so we pulled a case off of the truck. And on this same day, it was a coincidence, I promise, one of our customers complained about our bacon. So we were eating pancake syrup and bacon that day. We didn't have a problem with the bacon, and we ended up figuring out what happened at the customer's location, and we were able to help them solve the problem. So that's kind of why we're here. So why don't we go now and talk about the Market Basket Survey. Each year we ask our customers to help us with a Market Basket Survey. The survey comes in 2 parts. The first part is online and asks you to grade us on functions like our customer service team or our shipping. The second part is product pricing. We ask you to tell us what you'd have to pay if the VDC wasn't here. And then we use that information to calculate the savings we offer. Now, we always like to have feedback. It's the best way to learn. The 3 best ways to give us feedback are the Market Basket survey, our quarterly advisory council meetings. We have one for housekeeping and one for food, or contacting our customer service team. You can do that by phone or email. Now, since fiscal year 2000, we started collecting the savings figures that we calculate each year. And since that time, we have saved the Commonwealth and all of our customers over $298 million. On a typical day, this is what we look like. Now,
that was easy.
So as you can see, quite a bit goes into getting the product to you. Thank you for coming along on this virtual tour, and I hope that when the pandemic is over, we'll get to see you in person. I'd like to give thanks to Jen Barnett, Cheryl Starr, and Dave Foster for helping to make this video. I'd also like to thank our entire VDC team. Throughout the pandemic, they've reported daily to the distribution center to make sure that we can support our customers. We'd also like to dedicate this to our friend Tom Daniel.